Welcome back to the TVG studios in Los Angeles. You're watching Trackside Live on America's Horse Racing Network, TVG. I'm Todd Trump, along with Paul LaDuca and Simon Bray. But joining us on the phone right now is a part of the ownership group that sent out Orb in the Kentucky Derby this past Saturday to what has turned out to be one of the more popular victories in Kentucky Derby recent memory. Joining us on the phone right now is Mr. Stuart Janney III. Mr. Janney, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Talk about your emotions, that moment when Orb is storming down the stretch, gets to the lead, and all of a sudden you realize you've just won the Kentucky Derby. What was that moment like?
I guess relief, to some extent disbelief that a moment like that had come, but, I think mostly a feeling of relief, obviously pure joy that I was seeing what I was seeing, but you build yourself up to think that something's going to happen, and then you spend a lot of time doubting whether it will. And so when it does, I think you're mostly relieved.
And how special, Mr. Janney, was it owning this horse in partnership with your cousin, Mr. Phipps? I mean, I know you've both independently owned horses. They've both been with Shug, and you made a kind of lighthearted comment in the press conference, or Shug did, said he was going to win the Derby for both of you, and it worked out that way. How special was this moment, winning the Derby in partnership with your cousin?
Well, I think, actually Shug's comment was part of his speech at the Hall of Fame where, he was thanking everybody for everything and what have you. He said, I just do have an ambition going forward, and that is to win a Derby for Stuart or Denny or Stuart. And my lighthearted comment was, I'd like to hear him thinking prospectively, and not that he'd accomplished everything and now he could rest. But I think he, obviously accomplished a lot by picking a horse that both of us owned half of, because, human nature is what it is. And if Denny was winning the Kentucky Derby and I was sitting on the sidelines, as much as I love my cousin, it probably would have, stung a little bit, and I would certainly suspect that if the reverse was true, Denny would have felt the same way, and one of us would have made a comment about how much time the trainer was spending on this one particular horse, and did he know the names of all our other horses? But we avoided all that because we were both all in together.
Mr. Janney, in the post-race comments, Shug said that they asked him basically, when did you finally think that Orb was going to get to the Kentucky Derby? He said after the Florida Derby. What would be your turning point when you actually thought maybe this could be true, that we're going to finally get a Derby winner?
Well, I agree with Shug. And, there was some comment before the Florida Derby, and, perfectly appropriate comment, that Orb didn't have to win the Florida Derby. He already had enough points to get in the race, and maybe he could run a nice race in the Florida Derby and just use it as a building block to go to the Kentucky Derby. And to be frank, I didn't feel that way. I really wanted him to win the Florida Derby because I just felt that we weren't there to show up. We were there to be one of the 2 or 3, 4 horses that could win the Derby. And it seemed to me that we would need to be the best horse coming out of Florida because other horses are coming from other parts of the country, and if that were not the case, then we ought to do something else.
When you talk in those terms, you're obviously a very cautious person, and it was said over and over, the horse takes you to the Kentucky Derby. Look, being on the Triple Crown Trail, we talked about, to win the Triple Crown, it is one of the most difficult feats in all of sports. Are you obligated to come back in the 2 weeks, or do you feel Orb is actually built for this moment?
Well, I think he is built for the moment. Some of the concerns that I have about the Derby relate to, the field size. They've never been asked to do something like that. The fact that there are lots of moments that they'll see there with crowds and noise and delay and what the paddock looks like that they've never, ever dealt with before. And I have some experience with a horse called Coronado's Quest that, I thought if he went to Kentucky, probably I wouldn't survive the experience. So, to me, there are lots of reasons to skip the Kentucky Derby. Shug said in his post-race comments that one of the things he's learned over his long career of training horses is that when you make a mistake by putting a horse somewhere where mentally or physically they're not capable of, doing the job or performing, that it's not a mistake, it's a big mistake. And I just have come to believe that, whether it's through what I've seen from him or just, my general observations, that it's really important to be sure that the horse is ready for what you're asking him to do.
Mr. Janney, this is a time of year where it's nice to see horse racing front and center with the general public. The national media is paying attention to our sport. So the winner of the Kentucky Derby is a great ambassador for our sport, and we could not have better ambassadors than all of the connections tied into Orb. Thank you for being front and center. Thank you for making yourself available with us here on TVG, and best of luck to you the rest of the way in the Triple Crown.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Mr. Stuart Janney III joining us live here on TVG. We'll talk a little bit about what he just told us in that interview, and we'll be back with more on this Wednesday of racing action in just a moment.